That worked. Good afternoon, everyone. Steve and Richard. Misbehaving on the second row. Good. Well, welcome to our AGM this year. And thank you very much all for making the trip. Just so I know, who was at the club conference this morning? Okay, good. And I'm assuming that everybody who wasn't at the club conference knows where toilets and fire exits and everything is. Yes, so we don't have to do any formalities. Just before I go into a little bit of the format of the AGM, we'll just do some introductions. I'm sure most of you will know who we are. I'm Adam Walker, the chair of Volleyball England, and Sam, if we start at your end and go back along.
Yeah, I'm Sam Jameson, I'm the core market officer.
Simon Griffiths, one of the non-exec directors.
Stuart Dunn, Chief Operating Officer.
Janet Inman, Chief Executive Officer.
Frida Bussey.
I don't know what I am anymore. Non-exec director. Non-exec director.
I'm not in charge of anything specific. That's all I know.
I'm Claire Francis, also a non-exec director.
Richard Harrison, non-exec director.
Jefferson Williams, non-exec director.
Ian Wall, independent, non-executive director.
Oh, yeah, you had your title right.
And Claire actually is our senior independent director.
Sid.
Sid for sure.
You can see there is a consistent theme to being a non-exec director. And the reason, in case anybody wondered, the code of governance that Sport England ask all governing bodies to comply with now dictates that as a board member you don't hold portfolio, so you don't have a specific area of responsibility. So the way actually it operates within the board is that we do contribute to our areas of expertise, but we don't have a title that goes with that.
But why wouldn't we use a partner at Pinsent Mason Solicitors for anything to do with legal? But there you go.
Good. So who is this the first AGM for? Okay, Sam, it's you. Sam, it's your first one. Definitely your first one.
You lucky people.
Yeah, good. It's a hoot. It's a hoot. So the way we'll run the session is we have some formalities that we have to go through. So that's the first part of the AGM. Then we're going to go into more of an open dialogue and discussion. We've got a few topics that we would very much like to discuss with you. But we also want to see if there's any issues that you want to discuss with us, the board. What I will do is when we get through the formality part, I'll then ask what those topics are that people want to discuss, and then I'll work out how much time we can apportion to each of those different areas. Okay? So start to have a think. If there's an issue that you'd like to discuss, get that ready and tell us at that point in time. By way of opening introductions, I think there's a few really key points. Last year when we had the AGM, there was a certain trepidation. When I took over as chairman 2 years ago, we were really in batten down the hatches territory. There was a lot of financial challenges. The sport, in many ways, out in the sport, was in a great place. People were playing volleyball, people were enjoying volleyball. But at the centre, there were some real challenges in terms of finance and governance and robustness. Within that first year, through loads of incredible effort within the hub staff and the board, we corrected all of those issues. So last year, the AGM was a little bit of a celebration of good governance and getting us more financially robust. This year, we've still had quite a lot, I think, Janet, fair to say, of governance work to do. We've still had quite a lot of financial planning still to do. But we have been in a position that we've been able to move on to more innovation and really developing the sport. The things that all of you guys would want to hear, we've started to move more towards. And that will be a continual trend moving forward. Just in terms of some really key points to mention. You are the heartbeat of the sport, so the volunteers are what makes the sport work. Without volunteers, the sport would die. Without the paid people, the sport would continue. That's not decrying the efforts of the hub team, but you're an incredibly important part of the sport, and you really are the heartbeat. So I suppose from my point of view, it's just thanking you all very much for your contribution. It would be nice if we could thank you every day but just take it that this is going to last you for the year. So thank you for the past, and thank you in advance for all that you do. It's very much appreciated. Within the paid team, we're going through a period of transition. So by the end of September and then the middle of October, or the end of October, we will have lost to the executive team. So the two people who supervise my performance and make sure I stick to the agenda, Janet as the CEO and Stuart as the COO, will be leaving Volleyball England in their official capacity in terms of members of the Hub staff. I think there's 2 points within that. First of all, it's a massive thank you to you both from me personally, because without your guidance, I certainly wouldn't have been able to do the job that I've been able to do. And then I think it's a thank you on behalf of the sport in totality, because through your joint efforts, the sport has benefited a great deal. So we're having a celebration in September after our September board meeting, but just I think it would be appropriate if we gave Stuart and Janet a round of applause. So the inevitable consequence of that is that the nominations committee from the board has had a busy few weeks, and we have been interviewing for a new chief executive and a new deputy chief executive, because we've slightly changed the job titles. We've been incredibly privileged with the number and the quality of people that have come to those interviews, so that's fantastic from our perspective. We have got the final phase of those interviews on Monday of next week, and at the conclusion to that we'll have made decisions and we'll be appointing people. So next year you will be meeting new people sitting either side of me, kicking me if I get things wrong, but I'm sure you'll see Janet and Stuart around a lot and contributing to the sport. Then the next real sort of vote of thanks is for the Hub staff, and I'm privileged, not enough, I wish I could be in the office more, but the work that the Hub staff do is immense. And when you think 2 years ago there was a much bigger staff team than there is today, and yet no ball has been dropped, and the quantity of work and the quality of work has been maintained throughout that with a lot smaller staff team. So there's two parts of that. One is thank you very much Hub team for your commitment and dedication. And then the other great part is just seeing how those members of staff are developing and growing. Michael came to the board meeting this morning and told us all what we've got to say on particular things. And it's just great to see those people developing and growing. And hopefully many of you have enjoyed sort of the experience on the club session this morning and their contribution. So, and thank you Rob at the back there for your work. So thank you Hub staff. We should give them a round of applause. So on the theme of innovation, I haven't got too much more to say, so you'd be pleased to know. We're trying to innovate all the time, and we're trying to think of new ways that we can add value to the sport and push and progress things moving forward. Volley Zone is a big part of that, and I know there's been a huge amount of work put into getting that Volley Zone platform up and running, and hopefully that will only add to the insight that we have about our sport and our ability to be able to use that to bring in commercial partners, to learn more about what the sport needs and wants and how we can react to it. So that's just an illustration of some good innovation. My very final point before we dive into the formalities is just the amazing inclusion of volleyball, beach volleyball, within 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games. There's a few people, in fact, where's Barbara? So we've got Team Bellow, thank you very much. Richard, here, put up your hand, Richard. So Richard has had endless involvement with the sport, but played, as did Brian, and Brian's not here today, is he? So, but just a massive involvement in helping lobbying Commonwealth Games, lobbying the international body to make sure that we've got momentum behind our Commonwealth Games bid, really pitching the Commonwealth Games and explaining why we volleyball should be ahead of the queue in front of other sports. And then, you know, Janet and other members of the team internally have put an incredible amount of work into getting that. So 2022, Birmingham, I'm a Brummie, so you know, very personally, it's going to be a nice thing for me to witness, and it's a fantastic thing for the sport. So let's absolutely make sure we embrace that. Not only do we use it as a catalyst for action beforehand, we enjoy the games, but we use it as a legacy after. And you know, Richard, we've been around major sporting events and seen that legacy wasted. Let's not be at fault of wasting that opportunity, because it is an incredible opportunity. Good. Okay, so we'll move on to the formalities. Just before I go into the appointment of tellers, is anybody from Flamingo 6 here?
Flaming six.
Flaming six.
I apologise.
Flamingos are very on
Do you know what?
I'll take responsibility.
Yeah. I only do as I'm told. So yes, do you know what I'm going to do?
You pass that voting
Yeah, we
card.
just have a voting card. Okay. So we have. It's a nice name, though, isn't it?
Flamingo
It's a
six.
really nice name. I was envisaging the kit and everything. Right. Okay. We are. We need one more teller. So Rob, you're going to be a teller. You happy to be a teller? Yeah. Okay. Stuart, we happy?
Can it be
Or no.
Karen?
It
can't be Karen.
Can't be
I'm
Karen.
currently voting, so it's got to be a non-voting.
Voting? Steve.
Steve. Okay. Steve. So we've got a teller.
And let's do Stephen James, because Rob's all the way down the back. It's hard to get in.
Okay. We've got Stephen James. Good. And Sam, you were up for it, were you? You don't know what you were volunteering for.
It's only up to 10.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So, very quickly, apologies. Nick Heckford, Brian Kendall, Gordon Neal, Sayram Atubra, Steve Williams, Gary Beckford, Charlie Orton, and Lenny Barry. So those are all our apologies for today. Okay, Stuart, over to you for eligibility to vote.
So by the stated closing time for the receipt of proxies, 12 noon, Tuesday the 23rd, we received 10 authorities to vote, and they've all got their cards. One proxy vote has been given to the chair. One vote was given to an alternate proxy holder, so there are 8 other votes in the room. We rejected no applications for being invalid, unsigned or spoiled, and none that we received for being late in the end. So as we have 9 individuals holding 10 votes, we are going to use a poll voting system and not waste the time of using cards and go out and count, because there's very little to do. Cool. So the simple vote will be for, against or abstain. And Adam will declare the result after the tellers have given him the result.
Good. That's nice and easy, isn't it? I told you it was going to be a hoot. Okay, so minutes of the annual general meeting. We received no comments or observations on the minutes pre the meeting. So I just want to take a straight vote in relation to for, against or abstain. So all those in favour or for.
And yours.
Okay, all those against? Any abstentions?
10-0.
Okay, yeah, there we go. So 10-0, 10 in favour, 10 for. Okay, so the annual report. Janet.
Okay. So normally those of you who know me, that I would just have a few notes and that I would just wing it off my notes. But actually I've written quite a lot to talk to you about. So I hope you've all managed to see the annual report. We completed it really early this year and it went onto the website because we wanted as many people to read it as possible. And I hope you can see that it reflects a really open and honest report. We've not tried to hide anything. It is what it is because we feel that you should see the highs and the lows that we've had over the last 12 months. There is a common theme that runs completely through this report, and that common theme is about the lack of funding that we're receiving from Sport England and the challenges that we're going to face, we are definitely having to tighten our belts. And it's not just us, every national governing body is going to face this. But even in the face of those challenges, we've had a really good year. And I wanted to just give you some of the highlights. As Adam's already mentioned, we have to face a really tough, stringent test for Sport England and UK Sport, which is called the Sport Code of Governance. And there are 58 elements of that, and we had to justify every piece of work we did against those 58 elements. And it was a huge piece of work. And I'm sure the board, when they sat through some of the meetings, found it absolutely scintillating looking at the policies and procedures that we had to go through to get us onto our Tier 3 accreditation. And I'm pleased to say that after a huge amount of work, we are Tier 3 compliant. There were one or two sports that were struggling with that, and even though we now are T3 compliant, what we are trying to do now is to support BVF to become Tier 2 compliant, because without that you won't get Sport England or UK Sport funding, and we know that we need to do that going forward. I do know that the Aspiration Fund has opened the door again for us with BVF support, and that hopefully UK Sport can see how well we've done with that aspiration. It wasn't a huge amount of money, and we did some fantastic things with it. And I'm hoping that the new chief exec that's taking over, Sally Mundy, who's coming from hockey, will have a different view on team sports. If she hasn't got a different view on team sports, then I know we'll be wasting our time. But Sally's coming from hockey, so hopefully team sports will have a different perspective.
Sorry, that's
within
UK Sport, not Volleyball England, Chief.
UK Sport, yeah, UK Sport.
I saw some eyebrows raised.
Oh, well, Sally. The Aspiration Fund that we managed to achieve through UK Sport gave us an opportunity for our beach men and women to play in the Continental Cup, which I'm really sorry because I try and call it the Confederation Cup, but the Continental Cup. But what that also brought to us was a fantastic relationship with Waltham Borough Council, who, without them, we couldn't have funded that event being hosted here in this country and having so many people come and enjoy that event. So huge thank you to Waltham Borough Council and to Side Out, who put a huge amount of work into making that event happen. The great thing from that is that our men now qualify for the second phase of the Continental Cup. The sitting women also received some funding, and they've been playing in the European Championships over the last week. They back on that. Well done to Brendan. They're back on the international stage. They didn't win many matches, but they improved steadily. I watched quite a few of their games. They improved steadily. But what they are now is they're gaining world ranking points, and they're back in that level. So great for those women. And as we move forward, we have to develop more partnerships. The partnership with Waltham Forest, is fantastic for us. We have to maintain that, and we have to find other partners that we can work with, because our resource is shrinking, but they've got resource out there. One of the partnerships we've developed this year has been with UKBT, the Beach Tour, and over this summer we think there'll be about 80 events that they've managed to work in partnership with us, which is fantastic for really playing on the beach. And again, we're continuing to develop that relationship with them. The other beach highlights also include, finishing 5th in the Youth Olympics, winning gold winning gold at the Commonwealth Games, the Youth Commonwealth Games, and Holly and Ellie finishing 9th in the Under-20 Europeans, and what a fantastic foundation that's going to give us for us moving forward, these young people coming through our sport. One thing that we constantly say in the hub is, you say, and we'll do. We're trying to do that all the time. And one of the things that people were saying to us was that the Level 1 and Level 2 coaching courses weren't fit for purpose. So over the last 12 months, we've gone through both of those and we've produced new courses. And it's been really positively met. In fact, one of the tutors said to me, not only has he enjoyed delivering it, it's given him new energy to deliver, and he's really enjoying the courses. And that wasn't free, but she's told me that as well. Our competition programme continues to be delivered, and thank you to your support, your continued support for all of those who helped with that. Without you guys, without the volunteers, we haven't got a sport. We're not Volleyball England. You guys are Volleyball England. You are what drive everything that goes on day in, day out, week in, week out. So huge thank you to you for doing that. There are two things I think that, as I look back, maybe they're two pieces of work that I'll see as huge legacies from my time here at Volleyball England. One is the Reshape of the Volleyball England Foundation. And Adrian's going to talk to us a little bit more about the foundation in a few minutes. But the foundation, I think, can do for us what Volleyball England is struggling to do, and that is bring different resource to us. and help us to start to grow the sport again. We've got some fantastic trustees that have come to that board, 9 new trustees working on that board. We're working in, I won't tell you because I know that Adrian's script tells you about it, but I'll let Adrian tell you about that. But it is an absolute must that we develop that piece, that part, that arm of our organisation to help us drive the sport forward. And then the second is beach volleyball in 2022 Commonwealth Games. What an amazing opportunity that's going to be for us. Neither of these would have been achieved without the support of teams of people around us. That's not just the hub team, that's not just the board, that's you volunteers as well. Because I keep saying in our papers, keep saying into the annual report, we are Volleyball England. Collectively, that's us, not one person, not the hub. We are Volleyball England, and we have to keep saying that to ourselves. And if you have something that you're worried about or you're concerned about, then come and have a chat to us. But it is about all of us working together. So this is the last time I shall sit in this chair as the Chief Exec of Volleyball England. It's been an interesting 3 years. There's been some interesting challenges. But I'm so proud of the work that we've done supporting getting us back on track. And I have to thank this group of people because they have worked incredibly hard with us to get back on track. And they are your elected representatives. They are your people who will make decisions. Sometimes you won't like some of those decisions, but for us to move forward, somebody has to make those decisions. Somebody has to stand up and be counted. I also want to have a quick thank to the hub team. They have done an amazing job over the last 3 years. We cut the whole staff by half, and yet they've delivered all of the programmes and projects that we were delivering previously. And I've tried to get them to put things down, but they are so dedicated to developing programmes and projects for you that they won't. They make it work. They absolutely. Thank you to the delivery leads. I know we've got 1 or 2 of the delivery leads in the room with us today. A tough job moving forward when we've got limited resource, but they are doing a fantastic job working with the volunteers in the working group. And lastly, thank you to you, every one of you who does something for volleyball every day. The league secretaries, the coaches, the club secretaries, the treasurers, the people who do your website, the people who do your tweeting, the officials, and so many more people who give their time freely every week. And I talked to Barbara today at lunch and she said 20 hours a week she was giving to her club. And I know every single one of you do that. And that's why I've stayed with volleyball all my life, why I've done 40 years of volleyball, because it's you who make it so amazing. So thank you to you all. I won't be leaving. I'm leaving this seat, but I still will be around. I should still be flying the flag for volleyball. But it's been a real pleasure to be working with you over the last 3 years. Don't I get my tissue out again?
Good. Okay, so we'll move on to the next agenda item.
We have to accept the annual report.
We do have to accept the annual report. Thank you very much. Good. Okay, so all those for accepting the annual report.
Thank you, Janet.
All those against? And any abstentions? No? Good. So
And
we're
zip zip.
Yeah. Cool. Good. Excellent. Thank you for that. And again, thanks for everybody who contributed to pulling that together. Very good. Very good. So typically at an AGM you'd be accepting the audited accounts. And for a reason I'll explain in a moment, we can't do that today. And so the proposal is that they're noted today and that we accept them at the next AGM. The reason that we can't do them today is we haven't got the final audited accounts today, so apologies for that. There is a reason behind that, which is that we are working with the VAT to just explore a VAT issue that we don't know how it will affect the accounts moving forward. And until we've got to the bottom of that, we can't actually sign off the accounts. So it's work in progress. We did try and speed up that process and get to a point that we could bring the audited accounts. Unfortunately, we couldn't. So really for today, it's just noting that and accepting that we formally accept those at the next year's AGM. So I'm pretty happy with that. Don't think we take a vote on that. We just So you've got
Nothing to vote on. So.
no. Okay.
So, can I just check? So there's no report at all for the years?
Well,
This has been a...
We filed the accounts, so everyone received a set of accounts, the draft accounts, which are actually the audited accounts. They are audited and they will be the final accounts. But because we don't know if there is a VAT issue, the auditors won't sign them. So the numbers that you see are the numbers. It's just, are there any provisions we need to make for VAT?
It's just been a hot topic in previous AGM.
Indeed. So the surplus that you saw is our working capital surplus. That's absolutely true. We are, as you see, solvent. We're moving forward. We have working capital, which we have to have as a company. But what we don't know is what the impact of the VAT, which is a historical piece. It's not our piece. It's a historical piece, and we're doing some work with some VAT specialists on that right now. So the auditors have just said, everything's great here, but we can't give you that signature because if there has to be a revision, then we have to note it, and we can't tell you what that is.
And any of you that have worked with the VAT man will know how sticky that is sometimes.
But they're aware. We've told the VAT anyway. So it's not like they're coming to us.
No.
We filed 18-19 VAT return, no problem, and we're just looking at maybe prior year. All part of being on top of things up front. Yeah.
Open.
Good. Any other comments or questions in relation to the finances?
Yes, we are solvent.
Okay. And apologies, because we did do everything that we possibly could to be able to bring the final signed accounts here today, but just unfortunately we couldn't get that investigation gone quickly enough. So good. Okay. Let's move on to the next piece then. So the appointment of the auditors, and we're currently in our second of 3-year cycle with Duncan and Topless, and the proposal is that we maintain them as our auditors for this next year, and then review at the end of next year. So all those for maintaining our current auditors. Anybody against? Any abstentions? No? Good.
Thanks.
Cool. Good. Thank you very
Just
much.
make sure that you guys are happy.
So this next item is not for a vote, but it's just to be noted. So we have 3 independent board members, 2 who are continuing, so that's Claire Francis and Ian Wall at the end. And then a new independent board member joining us, Andreas Hernandez. And Andreas, put up your hand and say hello. So that's not for a vote, but it's just to be noted in relation to that. We then have one election of a director to the board, and that is Brendan Fogarty. Where is Brendan?
Hiding behind
Hi, Brendan.
which is the normal way, hiding behind a bar somewhere.
Yeah, great. So Brendan is voted for on behalf of the sport, and therefore we do have to take a vote. So all those in favour of Brendan's joining the board? Anybody against?
If they dared.
Okay. Any abstentions? No. Good. Andreas, Brendan, welcome to the board.
You might need an interpreter.
From one Liverpool to another. Incredible.
Yes.
Joking.
I should actually, it's very remiss of me, but Steve here. Put your hand, Steve. Steve was, when did you resign from the board, Steve?
March this year.
March, yeah. Okay. In addition to Steve being a Liverpool fan, which was music to my ears, so we've had many a happy chat about Liverpool. Steve, how many years did you do on the board? Because you've gone through 6 years. And through work commitments, Steve chose to leave, but Steve is joining the foundation, or joined the foundation and a part of the foundation. So Steve, formally on behalf of us all, thank you very much for your
Brendan, I'll let you two sort that out.
Yeah.
So maybe we should have found out before.
We should have done. Good. Okay. So the last sort of part of the formality is just to note that we have 3 vacancies. So that is a regional lead, a coaching lead, and a sitting volleyball lead. There's no formal action required on that, but it's just to note that we will be going through the exercise of identifying and recruiting those people. Okay. Johnny, anything else on that?
No.
No. Good.
But if you know anybody who you think is appropriate for those, let us know and we'll have a chat with them.
Okay, so the formal part, all the voting part of the AGM is over. We have got 2 particular topics that we would like to sort of discuss and have debates about. One is about the Volleyball England Foundation.
Yeah, Adrian's going to talk about that.
Yeah, Adrian's going to do that. And then the secondary one is the Commonwealth Games. And Richard, perhaps, I mean, if you...
And Barbara's going to
Oh, and Barbara, you're going to talk about that. So, so those are the 2 topics. And I think we just want to have a little bit of a debate about both of those and how we can best use them to promote and progress the sport. But just before we do that, is there any other topics, burning topics, that people would like to discuss?
Who's poking somebody?
Yes.
The individual membership fees for junior competitions.
The registration fee.
Registration fees.
Registration fee, not membership. Yeah, registration.
Okay.
Broaden that to individual membership.
Oh.
Broaden that to individual membership. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we'll put that as sort of 1/2 topics. Yeah. Okay. Anybody got anything else that they would like to? No. Okay.
Quality that trophy. Definitely.
Okay. So I suggest we put, without wanting to curtail the debate, people have got longish journeys home, so we will aim to finish by 3:30, which gives us pretty much 45 minutes. So
Sorry, there was just one thing. It's just about level 1 and level 2 coaching courses in the future and the regionalisation of them.
Okay.
Okay.
That will take.
Okay. So what we'll do, 45 minutes. We'll give each one sort of 10 to 12 minutes each and see how we get on. Good. If we're happy, we'll do them in the order of the foundation, the Commonwealth Games, registration and membership as a combined one, but with a split, and then the coaching element at the end. Okay. Is there any others? Because when we've got through those 4, I'm going to draw things to a conclusion. So, any others?
Can I just say that the registration for juniors and the overall registration there, as I see, must be 2 separate things, and I wouldn't like to see the junior registrations getting 4 or 5 minutes.
No.
So, just to make that point.
Absolutely. I won't foreshorten. I think some of them might be shorter than others, but we would anticipate that was going to have a sizable debate. So good. Okay.
Sorry, we must go back at training.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye.
Safe trip home.
Hope it's going.
Yeah, good one.
Great. Okay. So, Adrian, do you want to talk about the foundation?
Well, I'll just wander towards the centre if that's okay. Just because of the colour. Well, I have to say the wife says I've got the perfect face of radio. Right, I've been known to go off on one, so I've been given strict instructions in terms of what I've got to cover. So I'll just try and keep it punchy because I think some of the meaty stuff you'd like to debate later on. But 3 things I just want to say about the England Volleyball Foundation. Point 1, I'm just going to start by telling you a little about history in terms of those people who haven't come across it before, where it started and where it is now really. So it established back in September 2010. The foundation as such is a membership organisation, the only member of that organisation being Volleyball England. So obviously the foundation does stand alone as a separate legal entity, but it's very closely aligned to the national governing body of sport, which you've seen represented behind me. The registered office is in a place called Sport Park, Loughborough, which you might have come across. And the previous board of the foundation resigned in November 2016. The foundation itself was dormant since then. In early 29, a recruitment drive for new trustees brought in some new people. It was nice to hear Janet say that one of her legacies was bringing in those people. I think if that's one of her key legacies in terms of things she's excited by, she needs to get out more often. Although, on a less comical note, they've gone through a process. The 6 new trustees have come in. All of us are slightly different in shape, size, background, but hopefully we've all got something to add to the party. And not surprisingly, there's a common love for volleyball there, so I think we're in the right place. So at the moment, the foundation board now has a board of trustees of 9 people. So that's your wee bit of history. The next thing I just wanted to talk to you about was, what is it? What is it? It's might not be a history, but what actually is the Volleyball England Foundation? So, reading out again my script, but nevertheless to be accurate, the Foundation's trustees are people who hope to be able to give support to help develop, educate and promote the health and well-being of individuals and groups through taking part in the sport of volleyball. Basically, it does exactly as it says on the tin. Its principal aims are to support the development of the sport and promote the health and well-being benefits of being involved in volleyball, as well as ensuring that the opportunity to play volleyball and reap these benefits is available to everybody. And it's not limited in any way, shape or form by people's income, facilities, location or ability. So very much it's trying to provide an enabling role towards some of those core objectives. Now, what has it done to date? Because, okay, there's new people, or new kids on the block like myself from Stockport Volleyball Club, but over the years it has been successful already. So over the years the foundation has provided funding to support athletes, particularly from lower socio-economic backgrounds, and made donations to key worthwhile causes such as various initiatives to do with sitting volleyball. And we just wanted to have a few words just to sort of announce what I've just said there, really, just to say we are back. I think there's a phenomenal team of people that I've met so far, met them all for the first time in terms of coming on board as a trustee of the foundation, but I'm very much encouraged by the enthusiasm, by the people being in the right place at the right time. They generally want to help that volleyball family in one way, shape or form. I've only been involved in the sport for 2.5 years, so I've certainly not earned my stripes as much as many other people in the room will have done. But volleyball and yourselves and the governing body has given a lot to me and to my club, so it's our way of trying to give something back. And that's the entire and sole reason for us volunteering to be on this foundation. So having the foundation means that the volleyball community now has a resource, it has a source and it has a community where donations can be made. It has the benefits of being charitable registrations, so things like gift aid can be accrued, which can go back into our sport and our community. We hope to be more proactive, indeed we will be more proactive in terms of fundraising, bringing more money in to support the support and also to support the national governing body in terms of challenges it might face, particularly in the light of some restraints and challenges on that funding regime. So we just really wanted to take a moment on stage today just to say to you, we're back, we're starting off from scratch, but we hope to be a useful conduit for everybody in the room and the wider volleyball community to bring some extra benefit back to our sport. Great. Thank you. Very good.
Has anybody got any questions or comments about the foundation? No? Good.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Where do we give?
Yeah.
Where do we give?
Where you give? There's going to be a myriad of places you can give. One of the things that you probably should look out for, and I certainly think our wonderful hub Mark on this team will be far better at this than me, but we already have a Just Giving page, which is clearly a good source. I think I found it by accident on my Facebook page the other day, and next minute I noticed I launched an appeal for it on behalf of the foundation. Two of my friends donated, so that's good. And all the money was coming into the sport, so we have got a Just Giving page. But I think we're looking at a whole host of things, and people are communicating with us and will communicate with us in terms of what their aspirations are, what they'd like to see for the future. I'm sure things will be brought to the attention of the trustees that will go out and will try and seek funding to help enable certain things that come along. But I think the main contribution at the moment is probably the Just Giving page, isn't it? And we're just about to start refreshing our Volleyball England Foundation web page, which is integrated with the main website of Volleyball England. So I think more information will come. Watch this space.
There is Amazon Smile.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many of you buy things through Amazon? Amazon? Okay. If you when you put your Amazon thing and you put in Amazon Smile, what it will do is it'll bring up a charitable place where you can buy. So you buy whatever you're buying, whatever the same price, but for every £1 you spend, they put 0.5p into a charitable pot. And Volleyball Foundation is one of those charities. So rather than shopping just through Amazon, please shop through Amazon Smile, get your family to shop through Amazon Smile, and then that little bit of money comes back. They gave us £5 recently, but they've got
small acorns.
Absolutely, they've got 1.6 million in a funding pot, and all those charities that are part of their Smile group, what they do is they take that 1.6 million and they just give charities. If we're not in it, you don't get any. So we've only got £5, but the chance is that, you know, we might be one of those charities they identified to be able to give some more resource to. So please do. It doesn't cost you anything. All you do is just buy through that portal.
Just select Volleyball England Foundation.
Yeah.
Come to us.
I think anybody involved in the room probably do different types of fundraising, different types of charitable activity, or employers do corporate social responsibility stuff. It's nice to know that there is a registered charity sat there that's close to our hearts. So when lunatics like me decide to volunteer to do Manchester 10K once again, much of the fit state, now I know it as a charity that immediately becomes a beneficiary. So anybody that mentions they might want to do something they haven't decided who they want to give the money to at the moment, we'd love to be a recipient.
Yeah. And Steve, very kindly, you had a birthday.
Yeah, if anybody's on Facebook,
Yes.
for your birthday you get a £2 donation to the charity of your choice. So every £2 is helping. But it expands. If you've got some nice friends around you that just donate to it, it gets a bit bigger, so it works.
Good. I think it's really exciting. We're following in some ways the lead of other national governing bodies who need to diversify their funding. Having a charity is incredibly valuable for us in terms of its governance structure because it allows us to do things that Volleyball England can't. So we absolutely will be maximising every opportunity for the benefit of the sport. So I'm going to move us on, just in terms of getting through those different topics. So we're going to talk Commonwealth Games 2022. Barbara, you're going to talk from a parent's perspective, and then Richard, I'm just going to take a few comments from you from there.
So hello everyone. Well, those who still don't know me, I'm Barbara, the team manager and more importantly the mother of Javier, Joaquin and Enrique. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you on their behalf today. I need to go back a little bit on their history because that puts a little bit of context into what I'm going to talk about about Birmingham. The boys were born into a volleyball family. They grew up messing around with volleyballs at home, on the beach, the courts. Their father was a professional player. Their cousin had won the under-21 beach volleyball world championship. So they played other sports, but they had no choice but to play volleyball. But then London 2012 happened. And for those who have been to my house, you've probably seen, we have a very important document that is in a frame that the title says, To-Do List for Olympic Success. And it contains all the basics. So, of course, to train, to eat, to drink your milk, to eat your vegetables, to get good grades, not talk back to your parents, and don't argue with your brothers about the PlayStation. So here we are, two 11-year-old kids dreaming of becoming Olympians. Of course, we all know how nearly impossible that is, but that's not the point here. So since then, they started playing volleyball, training everywhere, playing. They took it very seriously. They joined the England Talent Pathway in 2014, I think it was. 2 years later, they won their first international gold medal in the NEFTA Beach Volleyball Championship. And 2017 came the Youth Commonwealth Games, which was the first big multi-sports international event for them. So 2 years and 4 days ago, today, they won a historic gold medal for Team England. They were nominated to be the flag bearers of the closing ceremony. And I think that was for them a big turning point, like a big milestone in their volleyball careers, but also in their lives. So then came Youth Olympic Games. It was an epic quarterfinal match against the host, Argentina. And once they got over the disappointment of not winning a medal, which they were very close, for them to be able to play in front of 5,000 crazy Argentinians. I mean, I was there, I can tell you, I've never seen anything like that. And I've been to 2 Olympics, I've been to World Championships. Think Poland World Championship in a young version. Crazy. They had interviews, all the TVs in Argentina, they did 35 interviews for media, TV channels, radio. crazy. So, of course, I think nobody questions these days the impact that these big events have at grassroots level. I think everyone knows Olympics, World Championship, all these elite performance events have a huge impact in inspiring people to take up the sport and to continue and take it to the next level. Of course, it's no secret that we are still, beach volleyball is still growing in our country. We're still far behind what our neighbors in Europe have. They have these amazing indoor beach volleyball facilities. They have professional coaches, leagues, everything. But with that said, we are in the right track, and there's a lot of signs, positive signs in that direction. So what all I want to tell you is that having beach volleyball showcased at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, exactly 3 years from today, it's an opportunity that we all need to get behind. So I think Volleyball England put together a really compelling pitch with all the financials, the competition information, everything. And it was an honor for my sons to be there and to talk to the panel about their experience as athletes. So they made a contribution. So now that I think the hardest part is done, I think it's now when we, as a volleyball family, we need to show the world that we're really good at this. I mean, we as a family, we coaches, players, volunteers, parents, officials, everyone. We know our stuff, we have the skill, we have the passion, and we will not have an opportunity like this to show the world that beach volleyball is huge and that we're good at it. So, of course, for my sons, to be able to compete and to fight for a medal on home soil would be an amazing opportunity and a dream come true for them. I think there is no greater honor for an athlete than to represent your family, your sport, your country. And to be able to do so on home soil, I mean, it's an opportunity that doesn't come very often. So this is where we, I think, as a volleyball community, we should first of all thank Volleyball England for all the work that went behind the scenes. I was a witness to this. I don't think a lot of people knew that all the work that went behind the scenes, all the networking, the lobbying, if I can use that word, and having been part of that for my son, it was a great honor to make their little tiny contribution. So, an opportunity for all of us, for our sport, for our friends, for our family, and thank you, Volleyball England. And that's where the work starts, where the job starts. 3 years from today, 27th of July 2022.
Barbara, thank you very much. Richard, if you can just say a few words.
Say a few words? Okay. Hello, everybody. It was 2011 that I flew to Malaysia to try and get beach volleyball into the Commonwealth Games. There are statutory sports and there are optional sports. We had to sell the sport to the Commonwealth Games Sports Committee at their meeting in Kuala Lumpur. We got through that process, and as a result, we ended getting the sport acknowledged and accepted as an optional sport. That means that every host has a choice of whether to accept additional sports or not, as well as the statutory ones. Our next brief is to try and get us into the statutory sports so that we're automatically included. The mechanism that we then had to put in place, bearing in mind that there's no organisation other than the Commonwealth Volleyball Federations, of which there are 61. It's probably the biggest played sport of any sport, including sports that they kick around called football. There's no sport that has more federations than volleyball, and particularly beach volleyball. The reason that we got in was because it's so exciting, it's dynamic, it's got an atmosphere, and London 2012, which when I was studying volleyball in 1968, was the dream to see a British team in the Olympic Games. The reason that we got in is because everybody recognised that London was so exciting and dynamic and still holds the record for the biggest crowds in any beach volleyball Olympic Games, is that beach volleyball is what it is. Music, young people, dynamic. All of those issues that you and I both recognise are the way that we will get volleyball in this country established as a more traditional sport, something which will become accepted by the vast majority. For my sins, I'm president of the Commonwealth Volleyball Federations now. And we have to have a qualification process. And we used a process which means that the host is automatically got a place. So we know that there will be an English men and an English women's team in Birmingham. Then they will take the next 3 positions, that's unless the federations of the Commonwealth decide to change it, but we will then use the next 3 positions according to world rankings. So unless you're in the World Grand Prix circuit, you won't get into those automatic places. But we have an automatic place, and no country can have more than 1 team. So one challenge for England will be who will be our number 1 team. I congratulate the Bella Boys for a phenomenal success, because having got it in an optional sport, we were able to get us into the Caribbean where they won their gold medal, which was phenomenal. Then there will be a qualification process for each of 5 regions. The Commonwealth regions are different to the FIVB regions. We have 5 competitions, and then ultimately we will end up with 2 concessionary places. So 12 men's teams, 12 women's teams. It'll be held on Centenary Square in Birmingham. For me, it's a dream, because I was head of sport for Birmingham for 10 years. So I'm going home, and I was on Centenary Square just dreaming about it literally last week. So I think from Janet's perspective and the work that we put in, and I can tell you, the 2 boys did us proud in the presentation, and they certainly, according to my antennae, and according to the politicians and the officers that I still know work in Birmingham, their contributions played a huge, significant role. Not only did they turn up in their uniforms, they spoke well, and they were polite, and they impressed the panel. So I think Birmingham 22, Barbara's absolutely right. This is the opportunity whereby in the West Midlands we have some beach volleyball courts at Keele University, up in the north, up in Staffordshire. We have none in Birmingham, none in the Black Country, none in Coventry in the West Midlands. We've got to do what we did in London. After London, we were able to spread the sound by taking it back out to all those courts that some of you that live in London and have practiced on it now were able to use as the legacy. So when Volleyball England, we get together and we start sorting out the legacy. We've got to start the legacy now, 3 years in advance. Chairman's absolutely right. We cannot let this opportunity miss. And there is a call for beach volleyball courts within the West Midlands region. We've got to make sure that there are sufficient young people coming through. I believe, and you may disagree with me, I believe something that I was told by the commissioning editor of Channel 4 Sport when we used to have our regular tournaments, volleyball will become a national sport through beach volleyball, because that's the one that will raise the temperature and the enthusiasm of the general public. So our opportunity is now, and I know that with the support of the core team and with the directors of Volleyball England, we will be able to form with the West Midlands Volleyball Association an exciting, dynamic legacy plan in advance. And I know that some people in the West Midlands are already talking about it. We mustn't lose this opportunity.
Great. Thank you. Richard, thank you. Good. So I think the key message from that is we've got an amazing opportunity we mustn't waste. So this will be sort of a standing and ongoing item for us in terms of our thoughts as to how do we build on a great opportunity. And yeah, it's fantastic. So thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Richard, for that's really helpful. What I suggest we now do is I'm going to move on to the coach education piece, because I think that's probably going to be the shorter of the topics. And then we're going to come over to the junior registration and then the membership, individual membership piece. So, coach education.
Want to tell us what the problem is?
What's the can we just hear one announcement from Barbara?
Oh.
Barbara, no, Barbara, do.
No, we were doing the awards presentations. The boys were playing.
And they won.
They won, yeah.
Yeah.
So. yes.
Yeah, good, excellent. Oh, well done, boys. Good. So the coach education
Oh, you
issue.
mean the coaching courses?
The coaching courses.
Oh, right, sorry. So a bit of history. I'm Michelle from Southampton Volleyball Club. We've been lucky enough in the last 5-6 months there to get an ex-England volleyball coach who's come back into the fold. Some people might know him. His name's Paul Moss. He was obviously FIVB level 3 coach, but he's spoken to Volleyball England, and obviously he's now got to go through his level 1 and his level 2 to comply to be able to coach, and be accredited and all that sort of stuff.
No.
Well, that's what he's been told.
No, it's not the case. If you're a coach, you're always a coach. That's it.
You
But
just-
you is that FIVB level 1.
He won't retain his FIVB status.
No, I haven't said that.
Okay, Michelle, carry on in terms of the issue that you think.
He's been told when he's spoken to Volleyball England that although he is FIVB accredited, albeit an awfully long time ago, I mean it's most probably been about 15-20 years, he's been told he needs to go on a level 1 and then a level 2. Right, so that's what he's been told. So we talked about it, and then he was saying that he couldn't find any coaching courses level 1 and or 2 close to where we geographically are. I think that there was one in 4 months' time in somewhere like Warrington. So it was more of a plea, sort of stroke a comment or whatever in terms of are there going to be more regionalised level 1 and then subsequent level 2 coaching courses to assist people like him in getting their level 1.
There's quite a lot going on in London.
But then of course, I've heard subsequent that there are some courses, but I still think that there's this thing about...
Do you want to organise one?
More regional...
Michelle, so if I'm understanding, there's 2 parts here. One is you've got a coach who believes he's been given the advice that he's got to do level 1 and level 2.
Bad one, unless you...
So
he's let his own about sort of 6 weeks ago when we were talking about it.
Okay.
He sort of left it because he'd been told that he had to do his level 1 and his level 2.
So,
FIVB he would, but not Volleyball England ones.
No. So Michelle, what I suggest, because I think there's 2 issues there. So the first issue, as an individual, has he got to retake these courses? And I think our initial view is that no, he wouldn't. But what I suggest is, if you context who?
Well, no, probably.
Course happening. I think what we need to do is discuss it in the office on Monday.
Yes. So
he has gone through the process of speaking to Volleyball England and said to get coach requalified.
Yeah.
He should be taking his level 1 and then subsequently his level 2.
Yeah. So Michelle, what I think we'll do is if we've got your details, we'll make sure on Monday that you're contacted and we can sort that individual issue out. And then the secondary issue is frequency of coaching courses and things. And I think, blimey, we'd love to be in a position that we could provide them all the time, all over the place, but there's limitations.
Well, to be fair, the programme is being built for coaching now, so...
2 hands.
There we go.
31st of August and October.
And there'll be one in Surrey, end of August, beginning of September.
Level 1 and 2? I just wanted to ask a question about this.
Yeah, do.
So we talked at our West Midlands Committee meeting the other night about how we can align better with the universities who are putting on coaching and maths courses for students when they start back, having them closed to start with and then opening them up when they don't get enough people, which is absolutely fair enough. But what we're seeing happen is that closing the region and then organising courses, not getting enough people on them, having to cancel those courses, people are missing out. Can there be some looking at a mechanism from the hub where perhaps as a region we're notified about all of the courses in the region and when they will go? It's just a process thing, so it doesn't need debate. But
I think that makes absolute sense.
To be put in place so that we're not duplicating effort putting on these courses when actually the university down the road might say we've got 3 spaces now and the course is definitely going ahead. So could there just be some investigation into a mechanism so that feedback loops continue working?
I think that makes absolute sense. So yes,
it might allow us to do that better, I think.
Yeah.
Can I just say that as a person who's involved in the regions and at the county and nationally, it's because those regions often don't work, or those counties don't often work and don't speak to one another. And you're quite right. It's not just the universities that don't, it's the clubs that don't, or the people in the certain areas just don't, or someone gets the message but they don't let everybody else know,
And
which
if
is
that's-
why we're doing the volley zone,
I think
because
that's
you
right.
will now get
I
messages
think that's
rather
right,
than
but I
just
think-
your secretary who then doesn't bother telling
I think
anybody.
that's right, but I think it was a specific thing that we were
Yeah.
talking about with universities because of the idea that they close them until a certain point to encourage students to sign up, which I completely appreciate is a valid thing to do. And actually it might be that a club has 2 people that need to do a rest course and they've got 2 gaps. But the knowledge is just coming too late.
But
So if it's
all
just
the-
a process.
All the information's on the Volleyball England website. I just go on there every 2 or so
Okay,
weeks and
just
see
asking if
is
it-
there a course area,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah,
or if
that's
anyone
just
asks.
gonna be
But I
a-
understand.
Okay, so let's just deal with these in bits. I think we've got a solution to the individual problem with your club,
Yeah, I mean,
Michelle. So
he's asked the question about the
Yeah.
individual courses because he was told that he
Yeah.
needed his level 1 and his
okay,
level 2.
so Michelle, we'll sort that out for you on
Yeah.
Monday. I think the point about the link with universities is absolutely totally sensible and something we should adopt. But I think this makes sense. We've got 2 other quick questions, one here and one towards the back. So.
I know there's been a lot of redesigning of level 1 and level 2. I've been waiting to do a level 3 for about 4 years. Is that next on the agenda? Is it going to happen?
Yeah,
Yep,
yes,
it definitely
that's
is.
the next bit. We're working on that now. It's got to reflect the level 1 and level 2. It's no
I
point doing it
appreciate
totally.
that.
Yeah. They're huge pieces of work.
I would add to that also that the framework which we're working with, which used to be UKCC, we're actually changing over to dealing with CIMSA, which is the professional bodies throughout the whole of the UK. So there's been a lot of framework changes that we're having to deal with as well. So.
Okay. So,
Carol's our technical lead.
yeah. So
If anybody didn't know
progress
that.
being made, and the quicker the better from your perspective. Okay. About the level 3. Okay. Okay. Yes. So we need to, as soon as more progress, we'll communicate that as soon as it moves forward. Good. Okay. We are now 3:20, so we've done reasonably well with our chunking up of those items. Given that I think these are going to take slightly longer, if we go 10 minutes longer, are people happy with that? We've not got any issues. Okay. So we will aim to finish no later than 20 to 4, and we will take it in 2 chunks, I think. So we'll do the junior registrations and the issue in relation to that, and then we'll do the broader membership questions after that, if we're happy with that. Okay? Good. Okay. Who wants to safe trips home, everyone?
Bye, East Midlands people.
That was noted. Oh, that was named and shamed.
Yeah.
Named and shamed. Good. Okay. So who would like to pick Mr. Brown?
Pete.
So an email came out recently about these player registrations to secretaries, and then the article appeared on the website. Sorry, I'm not as eloquent as some, but I'll try my best. I'm concerned where it came from. It just seems to come out of the blue. I say this as someone who's coaching junior, so in respect to the ones who are doing sitting volleyball and students who are involved in that as well. I know it's a bit of a package. When I look at the report on, so that's the first concern, and where it actually came from. Where's the consultation, where's the discussions? Because you look on the website, which I find very confusing, and I really would like there to be a structure that reflects something like you do when you're in education, where you've got a head teacher, deputies, assistant head teachers. I don't know who's responsible for who. I don't know who is in, let's go on to the track, sorry, who is the leads for competitions and children and youth. It's not clear to me who manages those when you look at that structure. And that would probably give me an answer where to go and ask these questions to more directly. Having seen that, I was appalled. I think you're going to lose so many juniors as a result. And there are lots of people in this room and others around who express that by email saying, I'm not going to enter this competition. I can't do that. Who've given examples of individual children, and I've had people reply to me from other clubs saying, that's it, I'm out. Okay, I can't afford to enter into these competitions. So when I look at the website and the report, it says there's, I haven't got the figures exactly, but 200,000 comes in for competitions and 120 goes out. So Why are we asking? So obviously some part of this family that we talked about with volleyball actually is not looking after the bottom end, is what I'm basically saying.
Okay.
We need those kids. We can't afford to alienate and lose them.
Okay. Pete, I'm going to kick off first, and probably my answer will be potentially the sort of the top line answer, and then there might need to be some delving beyond that. But I think there's a number of issues that you raise. So one is the management process. Who in the sport manages competition? Who is the working groups and things discussing competition? What part does the board play? And I think that's something, I thought things were communicated well, but if we need to look at communicate that in a better way, we will do that. So we'll make sure that everybody in the sport knows who to go to if it's a competition issue or an education and training issue. So I think that's number one. I think the secondary part is the part about wanting to get more juniors involved in the game and more people per se involved in the game. And we do not want to do anything that would ever detract from that or would ever dissuade people from getting involved and playing more and developing and growing. The one practical overlay to that is that the sport, all of our competition programs in total run at a loss, and quite a considerable loss. We are in a position as a sport that Sport England are significantly reducing funding moving forward, and that's not because of Volleyball England's performance, that is per se across all governing bodies. All governing bodies are experiencing the same cut. And so what the board needs to look is to say, we need to think and act as a business in one sense, and we need to think and act as a development agency in another, and we need to combine those two things together. And one piece we've been looking through is to say that to sustain competition at the level we are now, to be able to innovate in the future and really to future-proof it from when that Sport England funding starts to tail off and drop, we absolutely need to diversify our funding. And one of the ways of doing that is to look at the membership and actually start charging the membership for that piece of work. An underlying thing within that is we are carrying out some research to look at all of the other governing bodies and what they're doing. And actually, volleyball, if you take it in relation to netball, for instance, Frida, we were talking about this morning, handball, a great many sports of our sort of, netball's slightly different because netball's now sort of got a big elevated status. But a lot of governing bodies of our comparable size are charging significantly more to their membership for competition and for activity. So I absolutely understand where you're coming from. I absolutely understand the argument. However, we face a real challenge as a board. We've got to create a balanced budget. We have got to make sure we're sustaining things for the future. And unless we take business decisions in relation to that, we won't be able to do that. And that's why we've done what we've done. 2 seconds, because I'm sure there's going to be quite... Pete, do come back if...
Yeah, well, so how many teams entered the under-15s last year? 30?
How many have entered for the last 30 years?
Yeah.
It's the same number.
So,
if we keep doing the same thing, we keep getting the same results.
I agree. If we keep, that's the definition of science. You keep doing the same thing and get the same results. And we haven't changed and improved. In the 60s and 80s, we have not changed and improved it at all. We keep doing the same thing, making the same mistakes. In fact, we've actually repeated it by mirroring it with the structure of the under-15s. Because we're mirroring what was going on in the 60s and 80s, it was not growing. What I'm saying for you is, on the basis of about 30 emails out and the replies 7 or 8 back, several people, including myself, will not be entering the under-15s next year. The kids can't afford to do it. The clubs can't afford to do it. You're not going to say to a 13-year-old, "Look, Emily, come here, right? And your mum, single parent, you'll be all right." This next example. I'd like you to play in the under-15s next year. It'll be a bit of a step, but we'll be fine. And she gets on court a couple of times in one match. She gets on court, and oh, by the way, it's £10 for transport and £15 to register as well. Ridiculous. You're going to, there are schools who turn around to me and said, "That's kill. I can't enter that now because that's killed my PE budget for next year." There's got to be a better way, and I'm quite into. Brian, thank you for coming out and saying about the individual membership.
I'm quite happy for there to be a membership and a sliding scale. But it's got to reflect what the age of the commitment is. Our sport is not, we haven't got 2,000 teams wanting to enter this competition, and you can afford to lose a few because they're not really that committed. Right? We're at the work phase, trying to get these kids committed, and then you're going to tell them they've got to pay £15 on top of that for getting on court for a little bit.
Pete, what I'm going to do, Pete, and I'm not trying to avoid your question at all, because 100% I understand where you're coming from. What I want to try and do is just collect the questions from around the room, and then when I've done that, then we'll comment, because I'm sure there's going to be a consistent theme, and then we're going to be able to do it. So we've got 1, 2 at the back, Barbara at the front. Dave.
You said about other organisations charging, which they do. A bit of research last night, Netball England, and I know it's big, they've got lots of money, but to play regular competition, under 14s pay £8.75 for a year. That's not for what our under 15s could be paying, £15 for one event, because a lot of under 15s play one event. If you're an under 18 playing regular competition for Netball England, you pay, I think it was £18.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
And then adults pay the £36, which is comparable with what we do. The issue we've got, if it was £15 and those under 15s were able to play the regular matches and tournaments, I can understand where we're coming from. But potentially, you've got an under 15, as Pete said, who's going to play one event because their team know probably that they're going to get knocked out in the first round. They pay £15 for that, plus they've had to pay for transport, etc., etc. So, 3 years ago, I had a B team for my under 16s, first time I've had. I thought, we're going to enter them in the cup. We go down to Plymouth to play, and we knew they were going to struggle, and they did. But they enjoyed it, they progressed. We just had to charge the transport fee. I wouldn't have gone if I was going to have to charge them £15. 3 of those players played in my South West squad, which won the interregionals this year for under 17s. So that was their entry to competition, and they enjoyed it so much they carried on. We've got to be careful not to cut off the grassroots, because if you're going to have long-term development, it's to get as many people playing for as long as possible.
Okay. And again, I'm not going to cut you off. I absolutely get where you're coming from. Are we on the same theme?
I just want to add.
We'll just go one more from the back, and then Barbara yourself, and then Nick.
Taking a year to put together this primary pack at the moment, and that starts from scratch. We've left alone under 15s and 18s and 16s because it's sort of happening. But we can't just take this in isolation. We have to build up, and we have to bring everything into the whole picture, and that has got to include the funding as well. So you can't just suddenly go 15s, let's whack that on there. We've got to process through and see how the competition goes. So as others have alluded, Dave's alluded, that 15 quid might well be value for money if they know they've had 6, 7, 8 competitions through the year. This is how it works, but not just the one-off, which is the way it's just been put at the moment, because us on the coal face, that's how we see things, but it's got to be built into the whole structure.
Okay.
And we're slowly getting there, but it's just important that you can't, that is just an important part.
No, Nick, I understand. I understand. Barbara.
No, I just want to add a couple of things. Our club this year entered 16 junior teams into the national cups. We paid registration for 16 teams, 10 girls and 6 boys. All the previous phases of the national cup are self-funded by the clubs. Transport, the sports hall, the referees, especially in the case of the older kids. So that's something that we're not thinking about. Then we're ignoring the fact that there is no junior competition, quality or every weekend. So when you compare to other sports, it's a really unfair comparison because we don't provide competition for the juniors. So we encourage them to enter in the national league. And actually, it's one of the selection criteria for the talent pathway to be to play in the national league. So those kids that we encourage to play in the national league, and we put that as a selection criteria, we charge them a registration fee to play in the national league, and we charge them again to play the junior competition. So they're going to say, what's in it for me? I don't want to play. For what? Up until the last 8, it's self-funded by the clubs. So really, to pay a registration, Are you going to pay for the sports halls and all the whole competition? Or is it just for the, if you're lucky to play 2 weekends, if you're very good, I mean, Richmond will play all the way to the final, so we actually we benefited from the, but for everyone else, you enter a team, they get knocked out in the first round, there you go, the whole season.
If we hosted round 1 of under 15, do your maths, £30 an hour minimum to Irish Sports Hall, 15 quid a head for takers in the team, pay a referee, you're getting on 300-400 quid.
And by the way, I am not affected personally by this. My kids are not juniors anymore.
Okay.
I want to say.
I mean, I think, and thank you for the views. Oh, Sean, sorry, Sean.
Right. Totally agree with what I'm hearing the excitement around junior clubs. Well, I entered junior teams this year for the first time in competitions. I'm going to have to seriously think about it next year, which is a real shame. But I want to give a perspective from sitting volleyball. I believe sitting volleyball proposal is £25 a player. The Grand Prix set up for sitting volleyball is set up in such a way that teams can come and go. So you have teams who enter one tournament a year, maybe 2. We have a team come over from Copenhagen. We've had a team over from Guernsey or somewhere. So what's going to happen? Are they going to have to suddenly all register all their players, go through the whole process of it, pay the extra money for it? The other thing is, we spent years promoting and growing sitting volleyball. It's a great atmosphere that teams turn up with less players and they drag people in. They just drag people in for one tournament to make up numbers. It's perfectly acceptable because it keeps it going. How is that going to work? They're going to have to suddenly register players last minute. A lot, and my last point, quite a few of our disabled players, particularly service people, are on low income or zero income. This sort of stuff is not going to help them one way whatsoever. What will happen is you could be effectively looked at, it's the only sport, the only version of the sport they can play really. It's almost like discriminating against them by charging them for something they can't afford.
Okay.
That's a risk.
No. And all of this in a way is a risk. So there's 2 parts to that risk. We're not going to. So the first part to this is we're not going to solve it today. The exercise of raising this today is to give us the information and the view and take a barometer and your views. We need to go back, talk about these things and discuss them. There is, however, a real practical overlay to all of this, is that the sport has not got sufficient cash within it, and it is not going to have sufficient cash moving forward to be able to maintain all of the activities that it's currently doing. So there are a number of harsh choices. As a board, you'd be a lot more annoyed with us if we came back and said we're now insolvent because we've just spent and we've run out of cash and we can't do things. So what we have got to try and do is we've got to look at ways of diversifying our income and bringing new income into the sport. One of the ways of doing that is that you look at the people enjoying and the membership of the sport, and you start to generate money from within the sport to start paying for it. Okay? So what we have to try and do is look at how we achieve that, but what we've then got to try and do is look at the best way of achieving that, not to disadvantage any one group. And I think if I'm hearing a message today, it's certain parts of the sport might be able to afford it more than others. The bottom line figure doesn't change. You've got to generate money, you have to balance the books, you have to bring diverse funding in, and I make no apology for us thinking through that in a business-like way. What we've tried to do is create a level of equity across competition and say there is pain to be felt and everybody has to feel that pain. And I don't apologise for that because I think it's a reality. What we've got to now think, listening to what you're saying here today, is there a way of apportioning that pain, if that's the right terminology, in a broader way across the sport?
I don't think anybody questions the need to raise money. I think it's about the strategic decision of where to raise that money.
Absolutely.
And probably,
I hear
junior
that.
is probably the weakest. I mean, we're seeing declining numbers, and we're seeing the quality of the competition. So, is it the right strategic decision to put the pressure there?
The point is, this isn't,
not my decision,
this
but
isn't the venue for this kind of discussion.
No.
The point is, and James and I were talking about this earlier, that there was minimal consultation with the membership, and that's through the regions and through competitions. So we could have consulted with the regions, got this feedback and fed it back to the board.
So if we'd asked you all, do you want to pay more money? Of course you'd all say
No,
yes,
of course
wouldn't you?
not, of course
No,
not.
exactly. That's
No,
why
but
a
what
board
we-
makes strategic
What we would have
decisions.
said, what we would have said is, look, we all know that the most subsidised competitions we have are sitting, followed by the interregionals, followed by the junior competitions. As a group, every single region that I know of does exactly the same. They are always the most subsidised competitions. We would not have recommended to you that that's where we would put the fees up. We would have recommended to you up the adult fees, because the adults always subsidise the juniors and the inclusive sports. And that's what we would have
Okay. So you're dead right.
James,
Today,
sorry.
2 seconds, Pete, and then Nick, and then
We're
I'm
on
going
the
to.
same page, and this is where I'd like to build on.
Okay.
So that maybe we are.
Okay.
Sorry. Some positives. All right. I know I've had a winter. It's very passionate. Raising money is something I've been trying to do a little bit around about. You've seen some stuff about cash. Embrace it. Right, I tried, we are done. Please embrace it. Get the clubs. Just they'll bring money in. We ran, I've not been happy about the 15s. I've made that very, very plain in the past and what's been happening. So last year, and I put my effort where my mouth was. We made money on the under 14s with Otto. We made money at Wolverhampton University. Despite it costing us the same amount of money it would cost at Kettering, right? We invested in it, right? At the time we had 35 teams, right? Over 150 kids, right? We can do it, but the way this goes is that West Midlands will be ringing up South West and North West and saying, we'll organise a West England Championship. So on sorts of Volleyball England, because we're not paying that £15 registration, we don't need to do that. We'll invest inside ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point in the sense of we'd be chuffed to bits if regional competition and county competition trebled. I'd love it.
We can't do it because of the structure of certain other things. They stop us. We work bloody hard to sort our own competitions with the West Midlands and Black Country. And because of the structure of other things, we get blocked from doing it.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Nick, and then that's sort of final point I want to take because we're in terms of timing.
It's just good to have a breakdown about how much, we know how much income, £6 grand, how much 26, what did we spend that on, how many people have done what, so we start to look at figures, and then if it is open to people, they go, well actually, I think we could find somebody to subsidise that, or could we have done this differently, so just having a bit of a breakdown about where that money is spent would be.
And Nick, we are going to be, we have absolutely no problem in terms of being 100% transparent in terms of these are the competitions we're running, this is the amount that's getting spent on those competitions, this is the income we're bringing back. So absolutely, in terms of the feedback, we will share those figures and we will tell people in a transparent way. We can't solve this today. I think the principle is, well, there's a couple of things within this. One is, as a sport, the whole landscape of sport is changing. Public funding is not going to be the all-embracing panacea that it used to be. It is not. And as an NGB, we're better placed than some other NGBs who are absolutely crashing through the floor in terms of their funding. The reality of that is we've got to diversify funding. The foundation is a great illustration of how we're trying to do that. So we go out and we bring other funding into the sport to be able to subsidise things. However, we cannot escape the fact that moving forward, and I know if I was sitting here for the next 2 or 3 AGMs, we will be having debates about the sport needing its membership to pay for the sport. And I don't make an apology for that because I think it's a good discipline to get into. I think the message I'm taking away from today is when you are making that ask, think about where the levels of affordability are, and if there's more pain felt in the adults because the adults can afford it and less pain felt in the juniors, maybe that's a debate and a discussion we need to have. So absolutely I do hear that. Okay.
Can I just pick up on one thing that you said, Dave, that about it's only so much to be a netball player, but they have to become members of their county, their region, and their national, and the club, to register as a club in netball, it's £360 to register a club with Netball England. Okay, and then you get 10 players for that, and every other player after that has to pay this money. The same as in handball, it's £200 to register a club, even to play at local and regional level.
Yeah.
So we are a very cheap sport, and what we're trying to do is make it work better for us.
Well, we give and what we get. Perhaps we've answered the question there. We're a cheap sport, and what we've done is we've tried to raise money, not by looking at the sport as a whole, going to the clubs and saying, okay, clubs, we're going to have to overall charge a club more to register. We're going to target 3 groups, which is students, children, and people in city volleyball, who potentially have got the least amount of money.
Okay. Absolutely, we hear the message you're giving. Absolutely, as a board, we will continue that discussion. What I don't, you cannot design any change programme through mass committee. So consultation, we absolutely need to go through levels of yes, that word, okay. Consultation. However, as a board, what we've got to try and do is be sitting down, looking at the facts, looking at the figures and making decisions, and we will continue to do that. But I think we need, it's been a very helpful debate, and thank you for the message. It is taken on board. So
that email seems to say it's done dust.
At the moment it is, but no, absolutely, that's what I'm saying. At the moment the decision is made, but you've given us some messages. We, in our normal course of business, will continue to look at those messages, and if we think there's changes that need to be made, we will make those changes moving forward.
But the entries to the juniors competition will come out any time now.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why we're saying this.
First of August, isn't
it? It is. Yes?
Yeah, normal registrations 1st of August, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be an interesting... It will be...
They take more than a Super League team, a Super League player.
Yeah. In a way, the proof will be slightly in the pudding if entries crash through the floor, then potentially we've made a mistake. If entries don't crash through the floor, then perhaps we've not.
Somebody mentioned something about, or it might be Dave's point about an individual junior membership for the whole year. So if you've got a player playing under 15s, under 16s and National League, they just play one. So that's almost going back to the individual membership. But actually...
Registration, not membership.
Sorry, not membership, registration.
Yeah, just on this, because we've talked about the competition, we need to talk about the individual membership, and we're only going to be able to give that a little while. We should be saying now the consultation process starts about how does the sport generate more money within the sport for the benefit of the sport moving forward, because that's what netball have done very well. Netball had the seismic shift in terms of its performance by starting to look at the sport internally and say we have to take control of our own destiny, we have to start using that sport to generate. So I'm saying today is the start of the consultation for the next AGM, which is about how do we go about doing that, because it's absolutely, we cannot avoid it. We can't, if we knocked on Sport England's door every day of the week for the next year, they're not going to give us any more money. They are not going to do that. So what we need to realise is that there is a real practicality, which is start looking after ourselves. Now, within that, there's going to be some popular decisions and there's going to be some very unpopular decisions, but there has to be decisions, and we will take those. But I do hear what you're saying in terms of affordability in different sectors, and absolutely we'll take that on board.
Just to clarify, they're definitely in those fees, those increases are definitely in from 1st of August.
Yes.
Next season.
Yeah, Nick.
Just a little bit sad, it's a little bit like education, let's put the child at the centre. So saying that the proof will be in the pudding, when you're faced with those kids who are going, you said we're in the competition next year, why aren't we doing it anymore? And I'm withdrawing because that's just me being political, that's not solving it, is it?
Yeah.
Where schools have gone on with
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you've given us loads of food for thought, and I'm not going to sit here today saying anything more than absolutely we're taking on board your comments. and we as a board will discuss those and think through, have we got to adjust our approach moving forwards. But as it stands today,
the timing
we are
of
where
it
we are.
coming out and when it's going to be implemented is just...
Yeah, Pete, I agree.
We're going to kill it.
Well, let's hope we don't. But well,
My last comment is, since you mentioned netball, are we also going to look at how netball gets private sponsorship for their junior competitions? Because we're talking about, we need to raise money, we need to, these competitions don't pay for themselves, but are we doing something on that front? Or are we doing enough on that front?
Yeah.
Us as clubs and also Volleyball England.
So I had a conversation recently with Joanne, who is the chief exec of netball, and I said to her, what was the point that happened to netball? I don't know about you, I love the netball that's been on in the last few weeks. It's been amazing to see, firstly, netball and women's sport, such a high profile on TV. And she said, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we made a decision. We were going to stop being a hobby and we were going to start being a business. And it's taken them, an overnight success, it's taken them 10 years to get where they are. Professional players, they've got a Super League, hosting the World Cup in Liverpool, amazing. But they had to make that choice, and their choice was, we're going to stop being this organisation that is a hobby, and we're now a business, and we're going to run it like a business. And hopefully, that's the decision we're trying to make. We're going to try and run this more like a business. We have to do that, otherwise we'll sit here year after year and we'll not be going anywhere. We'll be in the same place. I wrote the whole sport plan for 2004, and I think we're in a very similar place to where we were there. How many years is that? 15 years later. We've got to do something different. We have to look at it differently. And if the model is netball, then let's look at that. Their whole basis came around about changing the ethos of their organisation to more business now.
The only difference is that you don't start with the juniors.
Yeah.
You start with the senior players.
No, they went with juniors as well as adults. They did. Netball did juniors as well.
Could I just say that the thing about netball is it's played in all schools from sort of the age of 6 really. There are thousands, tens of thousands of people in the country who've played netball. Parents understand netball. They'll support their children playing netball. I'd just like to maybe say something a little bit controversial, because I don't agree that volleyball would become a national sport through beach volleyball. I think it would become a national sport when it's taught in schools. And I honestly, until you get our juniors, young people in the majority of schools playing volleyball, I honestly believe we're not going to move the sport forward as a national sport.
This has been some of our big priorities. Try and get more coach education, more school education. I mean, Nick's been working fantastically on stuff that we can give to young schools, to junior schools, and young and new teachers. It is our priorities, but with our limited resources and what we're doing, we're all volunteers as well. We're trying to do our best.
I'm going to adjust. Netball mustn't become a red herring. Netball is one sport we're looking at. I've just been involved with a project with England Boxing, and if you look at where boxing gyms are in relation to areas of deprivation, you do not get more deprived areas with people with lower incomes than in boxing gyms. Boxing are just about to treble their membership for their junior members because they need to generate more money. So it's not. So we will look at all of the sports and try and learn lessons. I'm going to take very, very finally, just before I do, and then I'm going to look at the individual membership piece very quickly. Thank you very much for your comments. We absolutely take them on board. I think there is a consensus that the sport needs to generate more money, and I don't hear any dissent in relation it needs to generate more money from within the sport. That seems to be a shared view across everybody here, but I do take on board the point about juniors and needing to think through the apportionment of where you go to get that money. Okay, very last point, and then we're moving on.
If we had, at the moment what we're trying to do is make people pay for something which actually is giving them nothing. If we had a product, if we're going to be business-like, the under 15s, right, for this season, this is how much it costs you to pay, £15 to register, and we're going to play every month. And yes, you pay them for each tournament, etc. We can sell that, but at the moment we haven't got the product. What we're saying to particularly under 15s and under 16s is pay £15 and you may play one round of the National Cup, and that's it. That's the problem. What we're trying to do is sell a product that we haven't got. If we had, so that takes me back to Frida. You said earlier, and I think to somebody's question, we've still got the same entries as 20 years ago. So we need to do something different. So under 15s are playing 6-a-side. Is that right? Should they be playing smaller side with more teams, etc., etc.? And it all follows on.
This does come back to what we've talked about, that we haven't got regions and counties that are working effectively with juniors, and that's something we are trying to address.
Sorry,
as well
guys,
as
I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
This is a virtuous circle. We've got to provide better products. Better products cost us more money. We've got to generate, because what we can't do is we can't spend and find out that the gap drops. So we can't provide products. You know, the new perfect product might not cost 15 quid. It might cost 100 quid because it's a perfect product. The minute you've got much better products, you end up with a commercially viable opportunity to sell to commercial partners and to bring commercial partners in. Yeah, okay, this is the very last point, because I'm doing rubbish. No, I'm not taking any more after this one. So.
It's just conclusion. I'm as parents, everyone complaining about it's too much pay for the children membership, but it's not children who pay, it's parents pay. And if we increase payment for the adult membership, excuse me, it's not fair. I have to pay for myself more, I have to pay more for my husband, and a little bit cheap for my son. If I'm parents, I'm prepared to spend some money. Any activity, if I want to my child developing, I have to spend something.
Okay, good. I'm calling that debate to a conclusion. I could stay here all day, but we're not going to. Good. We're going to just very quickly take on the individual, or have we covered it?
Yeah, I mean, just a point though, I've gone through that netball journey with my two daughters who were playing 10 years ago when all this started, to the current squad of ex-school friends, etc., and club members. So I've been through all that. I had to pay, and the same with that lady's suggesting as well. So it wasn't a problem for me, I had to pay the money. That said, my key point with this is I think we've started in the wrong place. Individual membership, can we please stop dancing around the subject? Let's just get sorry for my language, can we please get individual membership in? I've sat through every AGM since it was first initiated. It was badly handled at the time. And it should not have been sidelined as it was at the time. Instead, we've wasted about 6 years now. Every AGM going around the same subject.
20 years.
Okay.
In 86.
We've got to accept the fact that we've got to pay for the sport. People think they're getting something for nothing. They're not. It's just going to go into a declining cycle. For goodness sake, let's just get this implemented.
Great.
The great news is when you all agree to individual membership, we now have a database system that can manage it.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's a really helpful comment to draw things to a conclusion. And my hot seat gets warmer each year. So and now my mates are going, leaving me, so I've got nobody to protect me.
I'll be out there.
You'll be out there. Yeah, that's what worries me.
Acknowledge it.
Good. Okay. I just thank you again. For taking the time to come here today. It would be great if we could talk all day and all night. We can't, but your points are well made and very much taken on board. And I just wish you all the best for the future in your volleyball endeavours and a safe trip home. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
He lost it last year, I'm not giving it to him again. Yeah, I've got it, but I'm also giving it to him to do it again.
I hope you haven't changed your mind. Which club are you with? Yes. That's right, yeah. Good. This is
Thank you.